Taehyung didn't plan to say it out loud. That was the part that lingered afterward, the part that made everything feel heavier than it should have been. January will make me cry. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't pause for effect. He didn't look at the camera or wait for a reaction. He just let the sentence exist in the narrow studio room, quiet and unprotected, like it slipped out before he could stop it. The air smelled faintly of cold coffee and rain-soaked coats. The red recording light was still glowing. Somewhere outside, a car passed, tires hissing against wet pavement, and Jungkook froze. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, physically. His hand hovered midair, halfway between reaching for Taehyung's sleeve and pulling back. His breath caught, shallow and incomplete, like his body had forgotten how to continue without instructions. His mouth opened, then closed. The rhythm that usually lived in him, always moving, always grounded in instinct, stuttered once and disappeared. He stared at Taehyung's face, waiting for the familiar curve of a smile, waiting for the reveal that this was a joke, a tease, something light enough to laugh off. It never came. Taehyung sat on the edge of the couch, elbows resting on his knees, fingers laced together so tightly his knuckles had gone pale. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't performing. He was looking down, not in shame but in exhaustion, like someone who had finally run out of ways to soften the truth. The room hummed softly, equipment breathing, electricity alive in the walls. Somewhere in the hallway someone laughed and the sound felt wrong, like it belonged to another life entirely. The producer behind the glass tapped the window once, confused. Jungkook lifted his hand without looking, a silent stop. The tapping never came again. Taehyung exhaled slowly. "I didn't plan to say that," he said, his voice steady on the surface, cracked underneath in a way Jungkook recognized immediately. It was the sound of something held too long. "But I'm tired of lying by accident." Jungkook sat down across from him carefully, like approaching something fragile that might bolt if startled. His eyes kept catching on stupid details. A loose thread on Taehyung's sweater, a faint bruise near his thumb, the way his leg bounced once, then forced itself still. Taehyung always did that when he was scared. He hated being obvious. "You said January," Jungkook managed. His voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Taehyung nodded. "I know." Silence stretched between them, not awkward, loaded. Jungkook's gaze flicked to the red light, then back. He reached over and clicked it off. The room immediately felt smaller, like the walls leaned in to listen. "Say it again," Jungkook said, softer now. Taehyung looked up. For a split second his eyes were raw and unguarded, and Jungkook almost looked away. He didn't. "January will make me cry," Taehyung repeated, "because January is when I stop running." The words landed harder the second time. Cold, heavy. Jungkook leaned back, hands pressing into the couch cushion to ground himself. A memory surfaced without permission. Snow on dark pavement. Taehyung laughing too loud years ago, promising things he'd sworn he would keep forever. "From what?" Jungkook asked. Taehyung tilted his head slightly. A habit. He did that when the truth felt too large to hand over all at once. "From choosing nothing," he said. "From letting time decide for me." Rain began tapping against the window, impatient and uneven. "Don't," Jungkook said quietly. Taehyung blinked. "Don't what?" "Don't say it like that," Jungkook replied. "Like it's clean, like it won't hurt anyone." Taehyung didn't argue, he nodded once. "It will," he said. "That's why I'll cry." Jungkook let out a sharp, humorless laugh, then stopped himself. He rubbed his face slowly, feeling an old ache stir beneath years of schedules, smiles, and careful distance. He hated January too. January remembered things. "When did you decide this?" he asked. Taehyung thought for a moment. "When I realized everyone thinks I already did." That made Jungkook look at him properly, really look. There was exhaustion there. Not the tiredness of long days, but the kind that came from being watched too closely for too long. from being interpreted until your own thoughts started sounding like rumors. People don't decide your life, Jungkook said automatically. Taehyung gave a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. They do when you let silence answer for you. That landed somewhere deep. Jungkook felt it in his ribs. He thought about all the times Taehyung had stayed quiet to keep the peace, all the times he'd smiled instead of correcting someone, all the times Jungkook had told himself it was fine, that they had time. Time had a month now. January is soon, Jungkook said. I know. Thunder rolled low and distant. Jungkook leaned forward, mirroring Taehyung without realizing it. What happens in January? Taehyung didn't answer right away. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, edges worn soft. He didn't hand it over. He just held it, thumb rubbing the crease like a worry stone. I go public, he said. With something I've been keeping private, I make a decision that can't be edited out. Jungkook's throat tightened. About what? Taehyung met his eyes. About who I am when the lights are off. The air felt thin. Jungkook became acutely aware of his own heartbeat, loud in his ears. Why tell me now? Taehyung didn't hesitate. Because you're the reason January scares me. That did it. Jungkook froze completely this time. No movement, no breath, just stillness so absolute it felt like the world paused to watch. Taehyung didn't flinch, he waited. Jungkook was the first to move, not because the shock had faded, but because staying frozen felt like surrender. He stood abruptly, the couch shifting beneath him, and crossed the room in 3 long strides before he even realized where he was going. He stopped at the window, pressing his palm against the cold glass like he needed something solid to keep him upright. You don't get to do this casually, he said, his voice low, tight. You don't get to drop something like that and act calm. I'm not calm, Taehyung replied. His voice was softer now, controlled. I'm contained. Jungkook let out a breath that almost sounded like a laugh. Same thing, better lighting. Taehyung's mouth curved faintly, then the smile faded. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know, Jungkook said. He closed his eyes for a moment. That's what scares me. He turned back around. The room felt different, like a line had been crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. He walked back and sat, slower this time, choosing his movements carefully. You're planning something, Jungkook said, and you're calling it honesty so you can survive it. Taehyung's shoulders dropped just a fraction. Yes. Jungkook nodded once. He felt older suddenly, or maybe just more awake. Then don't make me the last to know. I won't, Taehyung said. I promise. Promises. January had always loved those. Jungkook's eyes drifted back to the folded paper in Taehyung's hand. He didn't ask to see it. Some things revealed themselves only when they were ready. Whatever you think January will do to you, he said, steady now, it's already doing something to me. Taehyung's eyes softened. I know. The rain outside eased, the sound thinning into a quiet drizzle. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was full. They didn't talk much after that. They didn't need to. When they finally stood to leave, the hallway felt longer than it should have. Jungkook walked ahead, shoulders tight, shoes tapping too loudly against the floor. Taehyung followed a step behind, not chasing, not stopping, just there. That was always his way, close enough to be felt, far enough to deny intention. Say something, Jungkook snapped without turning around. I am saying something, Taehyung replied evenly. You just don't like the timing. Jungkook stopped so suddenly Taehyung nearly ran into him. He spun around, eyes sharp. Timing. You drop a month on me like it's a loaded gun and you want to talk about timing. I didn't choose the month, Taehyung said. But you chose to tell me now. Yes, Taehyung said, firmer this time. Because if I didn't, you'd hear it from somewhere else, and that would be worse. Jungkook stared at him, chest rising and falling. The hallway lights flickered once, then steadied. Somewhere behind a closed door, someone was humming, careless and oblivious. So this is damage control, Jungkook said. You tell me first so you can say you were honest. Taehyung took the hit without flinching. I tell you first because you matter. That's convenient, Jungkook shot back. You always say that right before everything changes. Taehyung stepped closer. Not touching, never touching when things were like this. Things change whether I speak or not. Not like this, Jungkook said. His voice dropped quieter, sharper. Not when you look at me like you're already gone. That landed harder than any accusation. Taehyung inhaled slowly. I'm not gone. Then why does this feel like goodbye? Silence pressed in. Taehyung looked away first, eyes drifting toward the window at the end of the hall where rain smeared the city into streaks of light. Because you know me, he said, and you know I don't cry over small things. Jungkook's fingers curled into his palms. He hated how true that was. They moved again, slower now, until they reached an empty practice room. The door closed behind them with a soft click that sounded too final. Jungkook tossed his jacket onto a chair. Start talking, he said. No metaphors, no vague promises, just say it. Taehyung leaned back against the mirror, his reflection doubling the tension in the room. In January, I'm making a decision public. One I've been postponing because it was easier to let people argue about me than hear the truth from me. About us, Jungkook said. Taehyung nodded. About what I won't keep hiding. Jungkook's breath caught. You're saying my name without saying it. I'm trying to protect you, Taehyung said. Jungkook laughed bitter. From what yourself, from the fallout? From the way people twist things, Taehyung replied. From you becoming a headline you didn't ask for. Jungkook stepped closer now, close enough to smell Taehyung's cologne, familiar and grounding. You don't get to decide that alone. I know, Taehyung said. That's why I'm telling you. No, Jungkook corrected. You're informing me there's a difference. Taehyung straightened. Then tell me what you want. The question hung there, dangerous and raw. Jungkook opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes softened just a fraction, and that scared him more than anger ever had. I want you to stop pretending this is noble, he said. I want you to admit you're scared. I am, Taehyung said immediately. The honesty knocked the air out of him. I'm scared I'll lose control of my own story, Taehyung continued. I'm scared that if I don't speak now, I'll spend another year watching other people decide who I am. And I'm scared that when I finally stop running, you won't be there. Jungkook swallowed hard. So you'd rather risk losing me by pushing forward? I'd rather risk it than lie to you, Taehyung said quietly. Jungkook turned away, packing once. You always do this. You make a choice that sounds brave and leave everyone else to deal with the wreckage. I've dealt with wreckage my whole life, Taehyung shot back, and I've been standing in it with you. That cracked something open. Taehyung stepped forward, his hand lifting instinctively before stopping midair. He dropped it, frustrated. Then stand with me now. Jungkook stopped packing. By doing what? Smiling while January tears everything apart. By trusting me. Jungkook shook his head slowly. Trust isn't blind, trust asks questions. Then ask, Taehyung said. I'm not hiding. Jungkook faced him, eyes burning. Is this about choosing? Taehyung hesitated just a beat too long. There it is, Jungkook said. You are choosing. I'm choosing myself, Taehyung replied, voice tight. For once. And where does that leave me? Taehyung met his gaze, unwavering. Still important. That's not an answer, Jungkook said. Important doesn't tell me where I stand when the world starts pointing. Taehyung closed his eyes, then opened them. It leaves you exactly where you are now, next to me, if you want to be. The simplicity of it hurt. Jungkook felt his anger drain, leaving behind something raw and aching. You're cruel, he said softly. Only to the people I care about, Taehyung replied. They stood there close but not touching, the air between them thick with everything unsaid. Outside, the rain finally stopped, leaving a quiet that felt almost sacred. January, Jungkook said. You really think it ends there? Taehyung shook his head. No, I think it starts something I can't undo. Jungkook nodded once. Then don't undo it alone. Taehyung searched his face. Are you saying? I'm saying I'm not frozen anymore, Jungkook said. I'm angry, I'm scared, but I'm still here. Relief crossed Taehyung's face before he could stop it. That's enough, he said, for now. Jungkook turned toward the door, hand resting on the handle. This doesn't mean I agree with you. I know. It means I'm not walking away, yet. Taehyung watched him go, heart pounding, knowing one thing with painful clarity. January wasn't the danger. The truth was. And it had already started moving. Jungkook noticed it first in the elevator mirror. The way a staff member's eyes flicked from his reflection to Taehyung's and back again. Too fast, too careful. The smile that followed was polite but tight, like someone holding information they weren't supposed to have. Jungkook stepped out before the doors fully opened. Did you feel that? He muttered. Taehyung followed a beat later, adjusting his cap, pulling it lower. Tell, feel what? That, Jungkook said, gesturing vaguely behind them. That pause, that look, don't tell me you didn't see it. Taehyung didn't answer right away. They walked side by side into the underground parking lot, the concrete amplifying every sound. Footsteps echoed too loudly. Jungkook hated it. It felt like being watched even when no one was there. Finally, Taehyung spoke. Someone leaked something. Jungkook stopped cold. What? Not everything, Taehyung said. Just enough to make people start guessing. Jungkook turned on him, eyes blazing. And you didn't think to tell me. I found out an hour ago, Taehyung replied. I was going to. You always say that. This isn't about intention anymore, Taehyung said, voice hardening. No, Jungkook snapped. It's about control, and you're losing it. That hit, Taehyung's jaw tightened. They reached Taehyung's car. He unlocked it but didn't get in. He leaned against the door, rubbing his face like he was trying to wake himself up. The plan was January, Taehyung said. Not November, not whispers in hallways. And yet here we are, Jungkook replied. So tell me, what exactly leaked? Taehyung looked at him properly then. They know it's not about a woman. The word slammed into Jungkook's chest. He laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. That's it. That's enough, Taehyung said quietly. Once they know what it isn't, they start hunting for what it is. Jungkook ran a hand through his hair. So now I'm not just a possibility, I'm a suspect. You're not a suspect, Taehyung said quickly. You're. Don't, Jungkook cut in. Don't say something soft right now, I need facts. Taehyung nodded. 2 managers, 1 stylist. They overheard a conversation out of context. Whose conversation? Taehyung hesitated. That hesitation felt like betrayal. Say it, Jungkook said, voice low. Mine, Taehyung replied, weeks ago. With who? Jungkook demanded. Taehyung hesitated again. Too long. Say it. With Jimin. The air changed instantly. Jungkook's face went blank, the kind of blank that came right before something broke. You talked to him, Jungkook said slowly, about this. Yes. Before you talked to me. Yes. Jungkook laughed hollow. So I wasn't first, I was convenient. That's not fair, Taehyung said quickly. Fair, Jungkook echoed. You want to talk about fair? I needed perspective, Taehyung said. He asked questions you never would. And why wouldn't I? Because you already know the answer. Silence slammed down between them. Jungkook looked away, hands shaking as he shoved them into his pockets. So what did he say? Taehyung swallowed. He told me to stop lying. A bitter smile tugged at Jungkook's mouth. Brave advice. He said silence is still a choice. Taehyung continued. And the longer I wait, the more damage I do. Jungkook turned back, eyes glassy. Did he tell you who gets hurt first? Taehyung's voice dropped. Yes. And you kept going. Yes. The honesty hurt worse than denial. Jungkook felt something tear open in his chest. So now people are watching, Jungkook said. Me, you, every move. I know. And January hasn't even started. Which is why I need to lock this down, Taehyung said. Decide if I move the timeline or pull back completely. Jungkook stared at him. Pull back. It's an option, Taehyung said, if this gets too dangerous. For who? Jungkook asked. For you. That softened something Jungkook hadn't expected. You don't get to sacrifice yourself like that, he said quietly. Not anymore. I do if it keeps you safe. Jungkook stepped closer. You think disappearing saves me? You think watching you erase yourself won't destroy me? Taehyung's breath hitched. Then let me choose, Jungkook snapped. Stop deciding what I can handle. They were inches apart now, tension humming between them. You want to know what January will really do, Taehyung said, voice low. It'll force me to say your name out loud in a world that wants me silent. Jungkook stepped back like he'd been pushed. You're not serious. I am. That would destroy everything. It would change everything, Taehyung corrected. There's a difference. You can't control how people react. I can control whether I keep lying. Jungkook turned away, breathing hard. This is insane. You're talking about rewriting our lives. I'm talking about finally living them. When Jungkook laughed, it came out broken. You make it sound so simple. It's not, Taehyung said. That's why January makes me cry. Jungkook closed his eyes. He saw stages, lights, hands almost touching, words swallowed for years. When this explodes, Jungkook said, voice barely steady, they won't come for you first. I know. They'll come for me, my motives, my past, every look I ever gave you. I know. And you still want to do this? Yes. Jungkook stared at him, then shook his head slowly. You're unbelievable. You're still here, Taehyung said. Yeah, Jungkook replied, I am. He stepped closer again. But understand this, if January burns everything down. I won't run, Taehyung said. Then you don't get to cry alone. Something in Taehyung broke and healed at the same time. They stood there, breathing the same air, knowing the truth had crossed the point of no return. January wasn't coming. Taehyung stared at the vibrating phone like it was a threat instead of a screen. Jungkook was sprawled on the other couch in the studio lounge, shoes kicked off, jacket pulled over his chest like armor. He hadn't slept. Neither of them had. The air was stale with exhaustion and unspoken dread. The phone stopped, then it rang again. Jungkook lifted his head. If that's another manager, I swear. It's my mother, Taehyung said. The room went silent in a way that felt violent. Jungkook sat up slowly. Don't answer it. Taehyung didn't move. His thumb hovered over the screen, the name glowing too bright. She knows. That's not. I know, Taehyung said quietly. She only calls this late when she's already angry. The phone stopped again, then rang. Taehyung exhaled and answered, Hello. Her voice was calm, too calm. You didn't tell me, she said. Taehyung straightened instinctively, shoulders squaring like he was 17 again. Jungkook stepped closer, close enough to hear every word. Taehyung didn't pull away. I was going to, Taehyung replied. When? She asked. After strangers started calling me, after relatives sent screenshots asking if my son has lost his mind. It's not what they're saying, Taehyung said. That's what you said last time, she replied, and the time before that. Jungkook's hands clenched. This is different, Taehyung said. Yes, she snapped. It is, because this time you're not denying it. Taehyung said nothing. So it's true, she continued. You're really planning to do this. I'm planning to stop lying. She laughed softly without warmth. You think honesty will save you. I think it's the only thing left. You're selfish, she said. You're thinking about how you feel, not what this does to the family. Taehyung flinched. Jungkook took another step forward. I've thought about the family my whole life, Taehyung said, voice trembling now. Expectations, reputation, silence. I'm done pretending that's living. And what about him? She demanded. The one always beside you. Do you think he won't be destroyed by this? Jungkook's breath caught. Don't talk about him like he's collateral, Taehyung said, voice hard. So you admit it, she said. It is him. Taehyung closed his eyes. Yes. The word echoed in the room like a gunshot. You're choosing him over everything we built, she said. I'm choosing myself, Taehyung replied, and he's part of that truth. Then don't come home in January, she said coldly. If you do this, don't expect forgiveness. The line went dead. Taehyung lowered the phone slowly, staring at it like it might explode. His hands were shaking. Jungkook reached for him, then stopped. You shouldn't have had to hear that alone. Taehyung let out a hollow laugh. I wasn't alone, you heard it too. I didn't ask you to do this, Jungkook said. I know, Taehyung replied, but I asked myself. Jungkook shook his head. She just disowned you. No, Taehyung said quietly. She drew a line. You're bleeding, Jungkook said, and you're still talking like this is theory. Taehyung stepped closer. Because if I stop talking like this, I'll break. Jungkook grabbed the front of his hoodie, fingers digging into the fabric. You don't get to be strong alone. Taehyung froze. You don't get to burn your world and tell me to stand at a safe distance, Jungkook said. I'm already in this. I never asked you to be safe, Taehyung replied. I asked you to stay. Staying isn't passive, Jungkook shot back. Staying means headlines, accusations, being the villain in your family's story. I know, Taehyung said, and I still want you here. Jungkook stared at him, fury and fear colliding. You're unbelievable. I'm honest. That broke something. Jungkook shoved him, not hard but enough. You think honesty absolves you. You think silence ever protected us, Taehyung snapped back. I already lost everything. I just didn't say it out loud. They stood inches apart, breathing hard, anger tangled with grief. You talked to Jimin, Jungkook said suddenly, before me. Yes. And now your mother. Everyone gets the truth before I get a choice. That's not fair. No, Jungkook said. What's not fair is you turning my life into a statement. Taehyung's eyes softened. Then tell me to stop. Jungkook opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Seconds passed. I can't, Jungkook said finally. I can't tell you to stop being who you are, but don't pretend this doesn't terrify me. I'm terrified too, Taehyung replied. They sank onto opposite couches, the fight draining out of them. So what now? Jungkook asked. The company will call, Taehyung said. The press will push. People will choose sides. And January. And January becomes inevitable. Jungkook stared at the floor. If this ruins us. It won't, Taehyung said quickly. Don't promise what you can't control. Taehyung swallowed. Then let me promise this. I won't hide behind you. I won't let them turn you into my excuse. Jungkook laughed weakly. You think you can control that? I owe you the attempt. Jungkook leaned back, exhausted. You're really doing this? Yes. Tears slipped free. Then stop acting like January is the end. It's the beginning of consequences. And I need to know you won't disappear when it gets ugly. Taehyung leaned forward, voice steady. I won't run, not from them, not from you. Jungkook met his gaze. Then stay even when it hurts. Especially then. Outside, dawn began to bleed into the sky, pale and unforgiving. January was no longer a date on a calendar. It was a decision already made. At first, it was coffee placed too carefully on the table, smiles that lasted a fraction too long, executives who spoke in circles like they were afraid a straight sentence might detonate something hidden in the room. Taehyung sat upright, hands folded, eyes calm in a way that unsettled everyone present. Jungkook sat beside him, leg bouncing once before he forced it still. They were positioned close enough to be photographed as a unit, far enough to be read as coincidence. The distance felt deliberate. "We'll keep this brief," the senior director said. "January has always been a sensitive period." Taehyung nodded. "That's why I asked for this meeting." A pause. The director glanced at the others, then back. "You're asking us to prepare for something you won't name." "I'm asking you to prepare for honesty," Taehyung replied. A murmur rippled across the table. Jungkook inhaled sharply. He'd heard Taehyung say it before, but never like this. Not here. Not with consequences stacked so neatly in front of them. "You understand what this risks," another executive said. "Endorsements, broadcast relationships, public trust." "I understand what silence costs," Taehyung said evenly. The room shifted. Someone cleared their throat. "And Jungkook," the director asked, finally turning to him, "where do you stand in all this?" The question landed like a trap. Jungkook felt every eye on him. He thought of his mother's quiet worry, his brother's half-jokes that masked fear, the fans who believed they already knew him. He thought of the studio couch, the shaking hands, the promise not to run. "I stand where I always have," Jungkook said, next to him. The silence that followed was absolute. "That's not an answer," the director said carefully. "It is," Jungkook replied. "You just don't like it." Taehyung didn't look at him, but something eased in his shoulders. The meeting ended without a verdict. That was worse. Outside, the hallway buzzed with whispers. Phones lit up. A stylist avoided eye contact. A manager pretended not to notice them pass. Jungkook exhaled once they reached the elevator. "They're stalling." "They're afraid," Taehyung said. "Of you." "Of January," Taehyung corrected. The elevator doors closed. For a moment, it was just the two of them reflected in the mirrored walls. Familiar faces, unfamiliar future. "You didn't have to say that," Taehyung said softly. Jungkook shrugged. "I'm done being ambiguous." That night, the first article dropped. It wasn't explicit. It didn't need to be. It spoke in loaded phrases and anonymous sources, painted timelines that felt invasive and intimate at the same time. By midnight, the comments were a battlefield. Jungkook sat on the floor of his apartment, phone buzzing nonstop. Taehyung paced near the window, city lights flickering like warnings. "They're dissecting everything," Jungkook muttered. "Old interviews, eye contact, songs." "I knew they would," Taehyung said. "They're asking why you always look at me first." Taehyung stopped packing. "Because you're there." Jungkook laughed weakly. "That's not an answer they'll accept." "They don't need to," Taehyung replied. "It's mine." Another notification, then another. Jungkook's smile faded. "They're coming for you harder now, saying you're manipulating me." Taehyung crossed the room in 3 steps. "Look at me." Jungkook did. "Am I manipulating you?" Taehyung asked. "No." "Are you here because you're afraid?" "No." "Then let them talk," Taehyung said. "I won't let them rewrite us." Jungkook swallowed. "My family called." "And?" "They asked if January is real." Taehyung's breath caught. "What did you say?" "That it's coming," Jungkook replied, "and I'm not hiding." Taehyung reached for his hand, hesitated, then took it anyway. The contact felt defiant. In the days that followed, the pressure intensified. Schedules were adjusted, appearances postponed, a planned variety show quietly canceled. The silence from official channels was deafening. One evening, after a rehearsal that felt more like surveillance, Jungkook collapsed onto a bench backstage. "I don't think they'll stop this." "They won't," Taehyung said, sitting beside him. "They'll try to shape it." "Into what?" "Into something safer than the truth." Jungkook stared at the floor. "And if we refuse?" Taehyung met his gaze. "Then January won't be managed. It'll be real." Jungkook laughed, breathless. "You really don't back down." "I learned what backing down costs," Taehyung said. That night Taehyung drafted the message. Not the final one, just the bones of it. Words he'd never allowed himself to write in order. He didn't send it. He saved it. Jungkook watched from the couch. "You okay?" "No," Taehyung said honestly, "but I'm ready." "For what?" "For them to stop guessing." Jungkook nodded slowly. "Then whatever happens next." "We face it together," Taehyung finished. Outside, the city hummed, unaware of how close it was to a moment it would argue about for years. January was no longer a rumor. It was being negotiated in real time. And the world was running out of ways to pretend it didn't know. January arrived without ceremony. No countdown, no announcement, just a quiet morning where the air felt heavier, like the world itself was holding its breath. Taehyung woke before dawn, staring at the ceiling, listening to the city begin its slow, indifferent movement. Jungkook lay beside him on the couch, one arm thrown over his eyes, sleep shallow and restless. For a moment Taehyung considered letting the day pass like any other. Rehearsal, meetings, smiles, silence. But the message was already written. He reached for his phone. Jungkook stirred. "You're awake." "I didn't sleep," Taehyung said. "Yeah," Jungkook replied, "me neither." They didn't look at each other. They didn't need to. The decision had settled between them days ago, solid and immovable. The company called at 7:03 a.m. "We strongly advise you to wait," the director said, voice tight. "Just a little longer, let things cool down." Taehyung listened without interrupting. When the director finished, he spoke calmly. "They won't cool down, they'll rot." A sharp inhale on the other end. "If you do this today, we can't control the fallout." "You haven't been controlling it," Taehyung said. "You've been delaying it." Silence. "And Jungkook?" the director asked quietly. Taehyung glanced toward the couch. Jungkook had sat up, eyes steady. He nodded once. "He's with me," Taehyung said. The call ended without another word. By noon, the rumors were louder than ever. Hashtags rose and fell in minutes. Speculation fractured into theories, then hardened into opinions. Jungkook scrolled through them until his head ached, then set the phone face down like it might bite him. "Once it's out," Jungkook said, "there's no putting it back." "I know," Taehyung replied. "That's why it has to be right." He opened the draft again, read it slowly, removed a sentence, added another. Each word felt like a step forward and a step off a cliff. Jungkook watched him. "Say it out loud." Taehyung looked up. "What?" "What you're about to tell them," Jungkook said. "Say it to me first." Taehyung swallowed. His voice was steady but only just. "That I'm done letting people decide who I'm allowed to love. That January isn't a scandal, it's the truth I've been postponing." Jungkook nodded. "Okay." "That I won't deny it anymore," Taehyung continued. "Not for comfort, not for safety." "Okay," Jungkook said again. "And that whatever happens next," his voice cracked, he stopped. Jungkook stood and crossed the room. "Whatever happens next, we survive it together." Taehyung closed his eyes. When he opened them, something had shifted. Fear was still there, but it no longer had the final say. At 3:14 p.m. Taehyung posted. No photos, no tags, just words. The reaction was instant. Phones exploded. Notifications blurred into noise. Jungkook watched Taehyung's face as the world responded. Shock, outrage, relief, gratitude, anger, love, all colliding at once. "ARMY is crying," Jungkook whispered, reading aloud. Some of them are thanking you. Taehyung sank onto the couch. Some of them hate me. They always would've, Jungkook said softly. At least now it's honest. Minutes later, Jungkook's name began trending beside Taehyung's. They're pulling you into it, Taehyung said, panic flashing. I told them not to. Jungkook squeezed his hand. It was inevitable. My mother just messaged, Taehyung said, staring at the screen. She says she needs time. Jungkook smiled faintly. That's not nothing. The company released a statement an hour later, carefully worded, neutral, supportive without commitment. It satisfied no one and infuriated everyone. By evening, Taehyung and Jungkook sat on the floor, backs against the couch, drained. Do you regret it? Jungkook asked. Taehyung thought of the years spent editing himself, the fear, the silence, the way January had loomed like a threat instead of a promise. No, he said, I regret waiting. Jungkook exhaled, something like relief washing over him. Then we'll figure out the rest. Outside, fireworks cracked faintly, someone celebrating something unrelated, unaware of how many people were staring at their phones, hearts racing. January didn't end careers. It didn't destroy them either. It exposed what had always been there. And for the first time, Taehyung wasn't crying because he was afraid. He was crying because he was free.